Rain hammered against the tall glass windows of the upscale restaurant as a crystal bottle flew through the air. No one moved. A drunk white investor stood towering over a 10-year-old boy, rage twisting his face, while the only black waitress in the room stepped between them without hesitation. The table tipped. The bottle came down hard. Glass exploded against her shoulder. She didn't scream. From the balcony above, the most feared man in the city watched it all unfold. The drunk thought he was humiliating a waitress. He had no idea who was watching, or what that single decision was about to cost him. What happens when racism picks the wrong woman to underestimate? Subscribe now and comment where you're watching from, because this story only gets more intense from here. Before the bottle. Before the blood on white linen. Imani was just trying to survive the shift. She had worked at that restaurant for almost 2 years. Same polished floors, same wealthy regulars, same polite smiles that rarely reached anyone's eyes. She was always the only black waitress on the evening roster, something management called diversity, when investors visited. Imani Brooks learned early that composure was protection. Keep your voice calm. Keep your posture straight. Never give anyone a reason to describe you as difficult. In places like that, tone mattered more than truth. Mitchell Rowe liked to remind her of that. He praised her professional attitude in front of guests, then corrected her for things no one else was corrected for. A napkin folded wrong. A pause that lasted too long. A look that he claimed felt intense. The customers weren't always loud about it. Sometimes racism came dressed as curiosity. Sometimes it came disguised as advice. And sometimes it came drunk. Noah Sterling had been sitting alone for nearly 20 minutes that night, legs barely touching the floor, suit too stiff for a child his age. He didn't look like he belonged there either. Imani noticed the way he stared at the door, waiting. Upstairs, in the private balcony lounge, Alexander Sterling observed the room the way powerful men do, quietly, calculating. When Travis Caldwell stumbled out of the bar, glass in hand and anger already rising, the tension shifted instantly. Imani felt it before anyone else did, and she stepped forward anyway. She had no idea that one decision would cost her the job she needed and put her in the middle of a war she never asked for. The restaurant never apologized. By the next morning, the clip had already spread across social media. Not the full clip, not the part where Travis staggered first, not the moment the table nearly crushed a child. Just the angle that showed Imani stepping forward. Headlines called it chaos at elite Manhattan restaurant. Comment sections called her aggressive. Some claimed she escalated it. Others questioned why she looked so intense. Imani Brooks watched her face loop on strangers' phones, while Mitchell Rowe issued a public statement about staff misconduct. He framed it as a liability issue, said she violated guest safety protocols, said she made physical contact with a paying investor. Travis Caldwell doubled down in interviews. He claimed he felt threatened, said she shoved him, said he feared for his safety. Feared. The word spread faster than the truth. Imani was fired before noon. No severance, no discussion. Just a security escort past tables she had cleaned for 2 years. Some staff avoided eye contact. Others looked uncomfortable, but no one spoke. Upstairs, Alexander Sterling didn't release a statement. He didn't defend her publicly. He simply acquired the building within 48 hours. Quiet power moved differently. Noah Sterling refused to leave the house for 3 days. He asked about her once. Just once. His voice had been small. She jumped in front of me. Alexander didn't answer, but he watched the footage in full, every angle, every frame. He saw the hesitation in Travis before the bottle came down. He saw Imani's shoulder absorb the impact meant for his son. He also saw something else. The room stayed silent. That silence bothered him more than the glass. Meanwhile, the harassment didn't stop. Imani's inbox filled with threats and mockery. Some messages told her she should be grateful she even had that job. Others asked why she made it about race. She hadn't mentioned race once. It was everyone else who did. A week later, a black envelope arrived at Alexander's private office. No return address. Inside was a still image of Imani shielding Noah, printed in high resolution. Across it, 3 words were written in red ink. Weakness can be used. Vincent DeLuca didn't need to sign it. Alexander understood the message. If Imani was framed as emotional instability, investors would question his judgment. If she was attacked publicly again, his enemies could force him to react recklessly. Either way, Leverage was leverage. Alexander requested a private meeting. Imani didn't sit. She stood across from him, shoulders still healing, posture unbroken. "I don't want charity," she said evenly. He didn't offer it. He offered protection, not romance, not money in exchange for silence. Protection because the narrative had shifted and she was now a target. She almost refused. Until the first brick shattered her apartment window that night. No note, no warning, just impact. The police took a report, no suspects, no urgency. By morning, cable news panels debated whether she had overstepped boundaries. Analysts discussed professionalism. None discussed the bottle raised over a child's head. Mitchell avoided her calls. Travis attended another fundraiser 2 days later. Vincent remained invisible. But the damage was visible everywhere. Alexander moved her to secure housing. That decision triggered another headline. Crime boss hides controversial waitress. The language was deliberate. Imani read it in silence. She wasn't being hidden. She was being positioned. Noah visited her once under supervision. He didn't speak much. Just handed her a folded drawing of a stick figure woman standing in front of a smaller one. He had drawn the bottle too. Children remember what adults try to minimize. That night, another message arrived. This time to Alexander directly. A dead blue jay delivered to his estate gates. Attached was a card. "Next time, we won't miss." Vincent had escalated. Alexander could have pulled her further into hiding. Instead, he made a different choice. He accepted an invitation to the mayor's gala, a public event packed with politicians, donors, cameras. And he asked Imani to attend at his side. Not quietly, publicly. If she was going to be called a weakness, he would force the city to see who stood next to him. Imani understood the risk. This wasn't safety. This was confrontation dressed in silk and diamonds. The night of the gala, the ballroom glittered under chandeliers. Flashbulbs popped. Reporters whispered. Some recognized her immediately. The same people who questioned her tone now stared openly. Vincent DeLuca stood across the room, smiling faintly. And somewhere between the orchestra's first note and the second glass of champagne being poured, the lights flickered. Just once. Alexander's jaw tightened. Imani felt it again. The same shift she felt the night of the restaurant. The air changed, and this time, there was nowhere to step aside. The lights didn't just flicker. They went out. For half a second, the ballroom froze in darkness. Then the first shot cracked through the silence. It wasn't loud at first, just sharp. Controlled. Intentional. A champagne glass shattered beside Imani's shoulder. Guests screamed. Tables overturned. The orchestra collapsed into chaos. Security scrambled too late. Alexander didn't hesitate. He grabbed Imani and forced her down as a second bullet tore through the pillar behind them. Marble splintered. Cameras dropped. People who had debated her tone minutes earlier crawled across the floor in panic. This wasn't a rumor anymore. This was an execution attempt. Another shot rang out from the balcony. Imani felt the heat of it pass her ear. She tasted metal in the air. She saw the shooter in a waiter's jacket, weapon steady, eyes locked on Alexander. Noah wasn't there, but the message was clear. Alexander rolled, pulling his concealed weapon free. He fired once precise, controlled. The shooter jerked backward and fell from the railing, crashing onto a banquet table below. Screams swallowed the room. "Move!" Alexander barked. They ran through the kitchen as alarms finally began to wail. Staff scattered. A chef ducked behind steel counters. Another bullet ripped through a swinging door inches behind them. Outside, the loading dock was supposed to be secure. It wasn't. A black SUV blocked the exit. Doors open. Engines running. Vincent DeLuca stepped forward from the shadows. Suit untouched, expression calm. 4 men flanked him with automatic weapons. This wasn't a warning. It was a message to the entire city. Alexander pushed Imani behind him. He checked his magazine. 6 rounds. Vincent smiled slowly. "You made her visible," he called out. "Now watch what visibility costs." Gunfire erupted. The dock exploded in sparks and concrete dust. Alexander fired twice, dropping one attacker before diving behind a stack of crates. Metal screamed on the impact as bullets tore into it. Imani's heart pounded, but her hands didn't shake. She saw one of Vincent's men circling wide, angling for a clean shot at Alexander's exposed side. He didn't see it. Alexander was focused on Vincent. The circling man raised his weapon. Imani moved. A fallen guard lay near the doorway, weapon beside him. She lunged, grabbing it with both hands. It was heavier than she expected. The circling attacker turned toward her, surprised. She fired. The shot went wide, but it shattered a light above his head. Sparks rained down. He flinched. That hesitation was enough. Alexander pivoted and dropped him with 2 controlled shots. Now it was just Vincent, and one more man. Leon Grayson stood beside Vincent, weapon raised, finger resting on the trigger. Alexander's gun clicked empty. Vincent stepped forward, revolver drawn. "You should have hidden her," he said quietly. "You let emotion cloud your judgment." He aimed at Alexander's chest. Time slowed. Imani felt it. The same freezing moment from the restaurant. Underestimation. Vincent had assumed she would panic. She didn't. She stepped forward. Not in front of Alexander. Beside him. Vincent adjusted his aim. And that was his mistake. Leon moved first. His weapon shifted, just slightly. Not toward Alexander, toward Vincent. A single shot cracked through the dock. Vincent's body jerked as the bullet struck him from the side. His revolver fired wildly into the pavement as he fell. Silence followed. Only the echo of distant sirens remained. Leon lowered his weapon slowly. "Business," he said flatly. "You aimed at the wrong person." Alexander didn't thank him. He didn't need to. Vincent lay motionless at their feet. Imani stood breathing hard, gun still in her hands. Blood pooled beneath the man who had tried to erase her existence. The city would call it a gang dispute. They wouldn't say what really happened. A black woman was labeled a weakness. And when violence came for her, she didn't run. She didn't beg. She didn't break. She stood. And in that moment, every person who underestimated her understood something too late. She was never the weakness. She was the reason he survived. By morning, the headlines called it a violent dispute between criminal rivals. They didn't mention the bottle. They didn't mention the smear campaign. They didn't mention the dead bird left at a gate. They certainly didn't mention the black waitress who had been labeled unstable, emotional, dangerous, only to be the reason a powerful man was still breathing. Travis Caldwell quietly withdrew from public appearances. Investors distanced themselves. The interview clips where he claimed he felt threatened stopped circulating once full security footage surfaced. Mitchell Rowe was terminated after internal investigations revealed policy violations and selective enforcement. The same management that called Imani a liability suddenly described her as brave under pressure. The language changed when survival changed. Noah stopped having nightmares. He didn't talk about the gunfire. He talked about courage, about how someone stepped in front of him when no one else did. Children don't misunderstand bravery. They recognize it instantly. Alexander didn't hold a press conference. He didn't issue dramatic speeches. But when cameras captured Imani standing beside him weeks later, unhidden, unashamed, the message was clear. She wasn't charity. She wasn't scandal. She wasn't weakness. She was discipline under pressure. Racism often doesn't start with violence. It starts with doubt, with tone policing, with assumptions about who belongs and who should stay silent. Imani was underestimated twice, first in a restaurant, then in a war. Both times, she stood. And maybe that's the real lesson. Not everyone who survives injustice makes the headlines. But every time someone refuses to shrink, the narrative cracks a little wider. So the question isn't whether racism still exists. The question is, when it shows up in your room, will you stay silent? Or will you stand? If this story moved you, like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Comment your thoughts below. We read every single one. And subscribe to Black Community Struggles for more powerful stories that refuse to stay silent.